So this was actually a really cool story. This is from Daniel Boguslaw at The Intercept on the UAW seriously outsmarting the automakers. We briefly talked about this a little bit. CNBC reported, citing a source familiar with the UAW strategy, a list of plants that they said the UAW planned to strike at. The big three moved a bunch of engines around and shut down various plants to anticipate it. They were wrong on every count and, at great expense, moved engines from plants that didn't strike to plants that did strike. Total fail by the executives, which allowed the UAW to paralyze their operations while still sending most of their members to work, conserving the strike fund. This is the reason why Shawn Fain decided to do a standing strike. Instead of calling a full-blown strike for 145,000 rank-and-file UAW members, he chose specific plants while also feeding to certain operations which plants he was going to strike at and keeping the actual strikes, actual plants that they were striking at close to heart, close to the chest. Okay? This way, you literally maximize the hurt. You end up having a larger impact with less money that you're spending out of the strike funds, allowing for these strikes to continue. Jimmy Carter, in the late 70s, Carter faced a coal miner strike. While he didn't visit the strike personally, he invoked the Taft-Hartley Act to try and end the strike, showing direct presidential involvement. Okay, I'm talking about like showing solidarity to the striking workers. I didn't mean which American president has like squashed strikes. Plenty have. That's not like all of them, including Joe Biden has done that as well. Are unions allowed to help each other with funding? Like Teamsters didn't need to use their strike funds. Would they be allowed to donate some to the UAW? I doubt that I don't know about the politics of a situation like that. I doubt that would happen. Not that the UAW is like desperate for funding anyway. So on the strike fund side, they're pretty good. So the only time was when FDR sent in the National Guard to protect striking workers of the Flint Ford plant in 1937. Why not stay on the clock but intentionally fuck off and work slow instead of striking? Damn, bro. 3 beasts came up with the fucking blue flu, okay? Plenty of workforces that are not legally allowed to strike due to their importance will oftentimes do that anyway. Cops do it. Cops literally have already been doing it even before they tried striking or even before they did the blue flu. Cops have been doing the blue flu by just being fucking incompetent. But even then, it doesn't matter. It's like, this is a better idea overall than just like slowing down the process. CNBC was cribbing from a trade publication which probably got their information from some strike-breaking consultant who was clearly played a fool by the UAW. So, let's see what Bernard has to say about it.
Talks are back on this weekend between union leaders and the big three auto companies as the United Auto Workers Union.
I actually have a friend who doesn't like universal health care for that reason. Her dad has great insurance and feels like it's a union selling point. Yeah, that's actually so fucking stupid because, hey, guess what? If great health care is provided by the government, then the unions can now demand better benefits in other directions. You don't even have to bargain for fucking great health care because the government's taking care of it. So now, all of that fucking money that opened up that you are generating, okay, as a worker, that you are creating in the form of profits for the company, you can now demand back so that it directly goes into your fucking pocket. That's it. Imagine if all of your healthcare premiums that your company's paying for going directly into your fucking pocket, $200, $300 a month, all of a sudden added to your salary. It's beautiful, bold, it's brilliant, it's great. Okay? All of a sudden, strike funds don't need to be so costly. Union dues can go directly into strike funds, and you have more leverage, you have more bargaining power. It's so stupid to think that government-provided healthcare would not lend a helping hand to the working class. And that is before we even obviously consider the elephant in the room, which is that this is good. This is good for every American citizen and certainly good for the American working class in general.
Considers whether to expand their strike beyond those 3 plants. Joining us now, independent senator from Vermont, Bernie Sanders, who rallied with workers on the picket line Friday. Senator Sanders, Vice President Pence was on the show earlier. He said, when I asked him about the fact that the CEOs make, multiples more than their average workers, 362 times more in the case of Ford. I said, do you think that's fair? He said, CEO pay is up to free enterprise. It's up to shareholders, not the government. What's your response?
No, I strongly disagree. I think what's going on in America today in terms of income and wealth inequality, the fact that CEOs are now making 400 times more than their average worker, the fact that we have 3 people on top who own more wealth than the bottom half of America, the fact that during the last 50 years, the weekly wages of the average American worker are lower today than they were back then speaks to the anger that the American people are feeling and what this strike is about. The American people are sick and tired, in my view, Jake, and I've been all over this country. They are sick and tired of corporate greed in which the very richest people are becoming richer. The head of General Motors now makes $29 million a year. And yet, if you're a new worker in the big 3, you make less than $17 an hour. They have temp workers who are temp year after year after year who make far lower wages than other workers. You have profits there, $21 billion in profits in the first half of this year. So what you're seeing in the automobile industry, in my view, is what we're seeing all over this economy. Greed on the top, suffering on the part of the working class, and people are tired of it.
I want to get to some of those bigger issues in a second, but first I want to ask you, this push from the UAW for a 4-day work week, is that a negotiating tactic, or do you see that as the future of labor in the U.S., a 4-day work week?
Well, I'll tell you what I think, and thanks for raising that question, Jake. We are looking at an explosion in this country of artificial intelligence and robotics. And that means that the average worker is going to be much more productive. Worker productivity is going to increase significantly. The question as a nation that we have got to ask ourselves is who is going to benefit from that increased productivity? Is all of that new income and wealth being created by worker productivity going to go to the people on top, or are workers going to benefit? So right now, in my view, I happen to believe that as a nation, we should begin a serious discussion, and the UAW is doing that, about substantially lowering the work week. People in America are stressed out for a dozen different reasons. And that's one of the reasons why life expectancy in our country is actually in decline. People are overwhelmed. They got to take care of their kids. They got to worry about healthcare. They got to worry about housing. They're worried. It seems to me that if new technology is going to make us a more productive society, the benefit should go to the workers. And it would be an extraordinary.
It's like, I don't know if there's another way to argue this. Like, I've said this so many fucking times. As we become more productive, it shouldn't be as our production capabilities get better and better through technological improvements, that shouldn't be used as a way to reduce the number of workers. It should be used in a way that is pro-worker, where the number of workers stay the same, but the hours that they work are lower and the pay goes higher. It makes no fucking sense. Give the same workforce less work. They can still do more work with the technological achievements. You don't have to fire them. But we don't see that. Our production efficiency is getting better, but aren't workers declining? Yes, because all matter of technological achievements that have improved our industrial capabilities, improved our productivity, has been used as a way to reduce the number of workers in a specific sector. It's not a coincidence that America's labor force has basically become the service sector. You have the white collar office workers that are largely doing like bullshit jobs, okay? Made up fucking jobs. There's bullshit, numbers crunchers and the like, okay? And they are getting hit with that same automation as well. Artificial intelligence, automation is like harming them as well, obviously. But it's like, it's all, our blue collar manufacturing industry has been shipped overseas because it's much cheaper. And the ones that remain here have been automated and reduced to a minuscule size, while the rest of the people that have been fired and their children are now fucking working in the service sector. Okay? And the service sector is also awful. Not a lot of protections there, not a lot of unionization there. There's nothing you can do about that part either. And overall, if you're either a part of the highly paid tax bracket, or you're the rest of American society and you're just like desperate to make ends meet. It sucks that you have only two fucking options. You know what I mean? And this, by the way, is no different in Turkey. You know, this is what I like. This is what I grew up with in Turkey. This is hilarious, pretending this was a phenomenon totally instituted by the Democrats and not unified partnership between the GOP and Democrats. I think GDF would recognize that it was absolutely just capitalism, which I know he knows is implemented, like interests of the capital owning class is implemented by both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party together. It's just that pointing the finger of blame at the Democratic Party when the Democratic Party has at the very least enjoyed some aesthetic benefits of like ostensibly being on the side of the labor force is the reason why you point the finger at blame at the Democratic Party. And yes, a lot of the neoliberal reforms implemented were directly done by the Democratic Party. I just want you to understand. A lot of the neoliberal reforms were directly implemented by the Democratic Party. You can say that they were responding to more reactionary forces in the government or whatever, but like Bill Clinton's influence is not marginal, nor is it negligible in the way that finance capital dominates every fucking sector. Okay? And same with Carter as well. Yes, absolutely. I would go so far as to say, like, under Obama and Biden, there has been a bit more shift to the left again, from center right closer to, closer to center, but still center right, in comparison to these prior Democratic administrations that were very much like incredibly right wing with their economic policies. So that's something to certainly consider. Like even something as ridiculous as like the 1992 Heritage Foundation operation, the ACA being implemented is unfortunately considered like a incredibly anti-capitalist measure, even though it was never an anti-capitalist measure at all. Like forcing insurance providers to literally fucking offer coverage to every single person is inherently anti-capitalist, okay? That came at a major cost. That in and of itself is like, I just don't think that Bill Clinton would ever allow something like that. It's so funny. I was actually reading something on, I think it was on Twitter about this, that like healthcare was so insane pre-Obamacare, where like healthcare providers could just refuse to insure you if you had a pre-existing condition, that people don't believe it. Okay? People literally don't believe that the healthcare industry was that fucking cruel. Like, I saw a tweet that went viral, okay, with like tens of thousands of likes and people being like, psh, sure, dude. I love people making up this reality that insurance providers refuse to cover people if they had pre-existing conditions. And I was like, what are you saying? Like, that's a fucking real thing that was happening.
All right. Obviously, I didn't know the sound was going to be that bad. What he says is, I'm not going to worry about it until it happens. He seemed to downplay the idea there. After that comment, Michigan Congresswoman Debbie Dingell reportedly tried to warn the president about the strike. She called the White House. The UAW leader has been privately frustrated that the White House has not been as engaged. Do you think President Biden should have done more earlier? Should he be doing more now?
Well, I think President Biden gave a speech a couple of days ago in which he made the absolutely correct point. Corporate profits for the automakers are soaring, and that they have got to use those profits to benefit their employees. And he has made the point many, many times that a strong labor movement benefits all of us. So I think, the president has made it clear which side he is on in the struggle. But I think, Jake, to tell you the truth, that all of us in this country have got to stand with the UAW now. They're not just fighting for decent wages and benefits for automobile workers. They're really standing up to the kind of corporate greed that is impacting tens and tens of millions of Americans. And what they are really saying, they're saying this to the big three, but I think that message has got to go out all over corporate America. You people on top, you've never had it so good. More income and wealth inequality today than ever in the history of America. Richest people are becoming phenomenally richer. But
Right.
60% of American workers are living paycheck to paycheck. So UAW is standing up against corporate greed, and I applaud them for what they're doing.
So as I mentioned to Vice President Pence, in the 60s, during this time of the huge expansion of the middle class, CEOs made about 20 times more than the average worker. Now it's, as you note, 300 to 400 times more. It's clear that these companies are not going to solve the income inequality out of the goodness of their hearts. It's clear that shareholders aren't necessarily going to be demanding it. They want their stocks to go up. The problem's getting worse. The middle class is getting squeezed and it's shrinking. In addition to a higher minimum wage and higher taxes on the wealthy, I know you support those two as a way to solve the problem. But is there another way, a more holistic way to solve this problem? Because you're right. I mean, polls indicate this is not just progressives aren't the only ones who are concerned about this. This actually is something that Democrats, Republicans, independents, people across party lines, part of the MAGA movement is an opposition to corporations, et cetera, frustrations with this.
That's right.
Do you think there's a holistic solution to this problem?
I do. And I think what we have got to appreciate, and you're absolutely right, Jake, this is not a progressive issue, it's not a conservative issue or a moderate issue. What we have got to do is
kind of revision of views on Tapper. I mean, this is partially due to contradictions becoming more glaringly obvious, but also partially due to the Republican Party reading the room better than the Democratic Party and immediately utilizing economic populism and baking it into their commentary. Because this country rarely ever moves in a direction unless at least now, America now rarely ever moves in a direction unless the Republican Party goes there first. Okay? So that is part of the reason why there are, that's part of the reason why the rhetoric has changed a lot surrounding this issue. It is also always incredibly frustrating when these fucking idiots on the right will be like, you mean the communist Jeff Bezos? And it's like, I want to die when I hear that. Like, they hate big corporations, but do not understand why they hate big corporations. And they also simultaneously hate big government. It's just like the American mind is so broken.
Is come together as a nation and tell the people on top, they just cannot have it all. What does that mean specifically? We are the only major country on earth, Jake, that doesn't guarantee health care to all people as a human right, despite spending almost twice as much as any other country. We pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. Meanwhile, while people can't afford housing, while the price of food in the grocery stores are going up, what you are seeing is corporate profits are soaring. So we need to deal, by the way, with a corrupt political system, and as a result of Citizens United, people in Washington too often represent the rich and the powerful, not the middle class, not the working class. But we need to bring our people together around an agenda that says, you know what, healthcare is a right. Let's not pay more for prescription drugs than people around the rest of the world. If our kids want to go to college, they should be able to, regardless of their income. So we have got to bring people together around an agenda that works for all, not just the few.
New numbers out this week show that child poverty in the U.S. more than doubled in the last year, from 5% to 12%. 1 in 8 American children. This comes after Congress let that pandemic-era enhanced child tax credit expire. Do you think it should be put back? And who do you blame for its disappearance? Because that was not just Republicans.
No, that's quite right. Look, what we put in that tax credit that substantially lowered childhood poverty in America, we put that into the American Rescue Plan. We try to put it back into so-called Build Back Better plan, which had 0 Republican support and did not have the support of Mr. Manchin and Ms. Sinema. We only had 48 votes to pass it. You know, Jay, take a deep breath. We're talking about the head of General Motors making $29 million a year. We're talking about the rich getting richer, and yet we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. What a disgrace. What a disgrace. So, of course, we have to restore that child tax credit. We have to end the obscenity of how we treat our children. We have to deal with income and wealth inequality. We need health care. For these are not radical ideas. These are ideas that exist in many countries all over the world. But essentially now...
He's lying. There's no other country in the world, unless it's a country that is like directly in a dystopian state as a consequence of American interference, involvement, an implementation of neoliberal, like a neoliberal constitution, or directly planting a fascist dictator there or something like that. There's no country on the planet except for countries that we fucked up. Obviously, all of the other countries, like if there is Americans love turning a blind eye to Marshall Plan recipient nations, okay? Those don't exist, okay? Whenever we're talking about, like, the positive things that a government can do, ask America to point to fucking any European social democracy. They'll be like, what are you talking about? That's not real. This has never happened, okay? That's never happened. They won't even look to fucking Canada, okay, to learn anything from that. What is this? You are 100% on right, motherfuckers jumping on it. Gotta say, there's nothing more funny than watching right-wingers discover that only a couple of investment firms own everything and think it's bad because of wokeness. These people will look at the problems of capitalism right in the eye and never see capitalism for what it is. Also, BlackRock and Vanguard and their existence is to make it seem like the average working class person has a stake in the market, okay? Yeah, the thread itself is a joke. The thread, this guy was doing a bit explaining that, explaining that, like, who owns BlackRock? Oh, turns out we own BlackRock, right? I read the thread. It was stupid. Okay? Turns out Vanguard isn't owned by any particular reason. It's owned by the people who invest in our funds. No fucking way. This goes deeper than I ever imagined. I remember when I worked at UPS, my target date retirement account through Voya was invested in several different funds. And it's like, I get the point. And the reality is, well, one, there are larger shareholders at play here that have a significant stake in these companies. But ultimately, no, this is basically making fun of all the fucking dumbass conservative conspiracy theorists, by the way, chat. This guy is making fun of this guy, who is definitely dumber than that guy, okay? This guy, he's always like, if you look at who owns CNBC, who owns Fox, and who owns CNN, there's always like, it's always this, dude. It's always this. If you look at who owns CNBC, who owns Fox, who owns CNN, at the top of the shareholder list, you have Vanguard and BlackRock. Then you have to look at the manufacturers, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, and Moderna. Who are the top shareholders of those companies? Also Vanguard and BlackRock. And they all vote in unison. That's right. They all vote collectively, they all vote in unison, and they all get together, and they vote to make us homosexual. They make us autistic and gay. That's what BlackRock and Vanguard want to do. They own all the corporations, and all the corporations are implementing DEI initiatives. You know what DEI stands for? You know what DEI actually is? It's D-I-E. I know how to spell. I passed third grade in flying colors. D-I-E, D-E-I. You can't fool me. They mean die. That's right. The real truth is right in front of our eyes for everyone to recognize. Because real lies, real lies, real lies. Okay, I can't keep doing this. Okay.
We turn now to United Auto Workers President Shawn Fain.
She's like so not used to saying UAW that she fucked it up. I love that.
Good morning to you, sir. You have said that you had reasonably productive conversations with Ford yesterday. Does that mean they're going to put a more generous offer on the table?
Good morning. Thanks for having us. And, that's up to them. The reason we're in this situation right now is because all three of the big three companies chose to wait. They chose not to negotiate for the 8 weeks we had. We started this back in July, and we told them then, don't wait till the last minute or you're going to find yourself in a bad position. And unfortunately, they chose to wait till the last week to get down and start talking to get serious about this, and that's where we are now. And if we don't get better offers and we don't get down and take care of the members' needs, then we're going to amp this thing up even more.
Well, you said progress is slow. Will you order strikes at additional plants this week? Are you preparing for that?
We're prepared to do whatever we have to do. So the membership is ready. The membership is fed up. We're fed up with falling behind. It's been decades of falling behind, and especially this past decade, in the most wealthiest times in the history of these companies. There is no excuse. These companies have made $250 billion in the last 10 years, $21 billion in the last 6 months alone. And our workers' wages and conditions have went backwards.
You're asking for a 36% pay raise, as our reporter just laid out there. Stellantis said they've offered 21%. What are you expecting out of tomorrow's negotiation with them? That seems forward movement.
We've asked for 40% pay increases, and the reason we asked for 40% pay increases is because in the last 4 years alone, the CEO pay went up 40%. They're already millionaires. Right. It's shameful that one of the leaders of one of the corporations sitting in his second home in Acapulco while we're bargaining, rather than being at the bargaining table. And so, our demands are just. We're asking for our fair share in this economy and the fruits of our labor. So
21% is a no-go for you.
It's definitely a no-go, and we've made that very clear to the companies.
Ford's CEO said,
it's like weird that it comes across like she's like antagonistic.
Last November that electric vehicles are going to require 40% less labor to produce than combustion.
Like, this is like Pete Buttigieg being like, so how long do you have on the strike funds? Like going on the fucking picket line and being like, so how long do you think you can put out? What's going on? How much money you guys got in there? How much money in the tank? Care to tell me which factories you're choosing to do your standing strike at next, or what's happening?
Vehicles. I know it may not be the intention, but I wonder how you think this transition to electric vehicles may be eating away at your union's strength.
Well, I don't believe it's eating away at our union strength. It is the way it is right now. Unfortunately, this is what's wrong with our economy, and this is what's wrong with America right now. The billionaire class keeps taking more and more, and the working class keeps getting left behind. And the unfortunate part in this transition right now, like always, go back to the Great Recession. The banks got bailed out by our taxpayer dollars, and they just kept on doing what they do, while working class people's homes got foreclosed on.
Automakers got bailed out too.
Go back to the, yes, automakers got bailed out,
taxpayers
and
lost
again,
money on that.
The workers were unfairly blamed for everything that was wrong with those companies. It was bad decisions on the parts of the companies that put us in that position. And the sad reality is, the workers paid the price for that. We made all the sacrifices, and after a decade of massive profits,
yep,
the workers have went backwards. Our wages have went backwards. Our benefits have went backwards. The majority of our members have zero retirement security now. And meanwhile, it's insulting that a CEO gets on air in the last few days and says that her $29 million salary is justified by her performance. No, it's not. It's justified by the performance of the worker on the backs of the workers and by paying them poverty wages. And that's unacceptable in this country.
Well, I know. You've also said, though, it's a shell game to talk about, CEOs handing back part of their money. You're talking about something that's more fundamental to the structure of this entire sector of the economy. And that's why I'm asking you about the transition, because many of the factories in this country that make batteries for those electric vehicles are not unionized.
Crazy. If only there was a provision that they could have put in the IRA for all the new manufacturing facilities that wasn't shot down by a dude who should literally be in prison, or his daughter should be in prison, and his brother should be in prison. And if you were to ask me why they should go to prison, there's like literally, I don't know, a multitude of different reasons you can point to, like, I don't know, artificially increasing the prices of fucking medicine that Joe Manchin's daughter herself personally boosted when she worked at this pharmaceutical corporation, which she sold to West Virginia. I'm just saying, like, there are people that are directly involved that played a role in eviscerating certain union provisions from the IRA, which would have made it an absolute necessity to, which would have made it literally a condition. If you want to fucking build a facility here, we're going to give you money to do that, but you have to make sure that they are unionized. Also, I've never seen so much fucking disdain. Like, goddamn, this is like positively British, I will say. Like the level of like the level of, I don't know. She's just so not even indifferent. She's just like very like inconsiderate. It's cool. Like, I haven't seen this in America in a while.
And that
very openly antagonistic, very hostile, very gross. Cool. I like that. That's great. Now they're getting to that point in American media,
where the White House is pushing the industry to go more towards those electric vehicles. Isn't that part of this challenge for you, leverage-wise?
What the fuck? Like, oh yeah, you're gonna lose your leverage because electric vehicle battery manufacturing is not fucking unionized. It's like, nah, there's workers there. You should say there's fucking workers there. You know what that means? That means that they're gonna want to see what we're doing. They're gonna see the fucking contract negotiations pan out, and they're gonna want a piece of that too. And they should get a piece of that. And the best way to get a piece of that fucking pie that they themselves are generating, the value that they're creating, is by joining a fucking union, specifically maybe the UAW. You know what I'm saying? That's it.
So the challenge is, where we're going to go as a country. Again, I get back to this point. Our tax dollars are financing a massive portion of this transition to EV. We believe in a green economy. We have to have clean water. We have to have clean air. Anyone that doesn't believe global warming is happening isn't paying attention. Mm-hmm. But this transition has to be a just transition. And a just transition means if our tax dollars are going to finance this transition.
Dude, the Green New Deal is the most comprehensive, positive piece of legislation that is so fucking phenomenally good for the American working class, that has been so insanely and insidiously propagandized against. It boggles my mind, and it makes me fucking insanely frustrated, okay? When I think about it, it's like, it is literally the same principle behind, like, screaming at the top of your fucking lungs at, like, the prospect of 15-minute cities. It's like, it literally will help you. You fucking absolute moron, you baboon, you idiot. It's the same with the Green New Deal. People keep trying to bait UAW into saying bad shit about EVs, and they're not doing so, even though it'd be easy for them to scapegoat. I'm happy they're never taking the bait. Well, I mean, certain EV manufacturing plants are also getting unionized. So why would they say that? Because ultimately, they're fucking workers too. It's not just Tesla, okay?
Then labor can't be left behind. And as it stands right now, the workers are being left behind. The companies want to talk about being competitive. Yeah. It's not about being competitive. Competitive is a code word for race to the bottom. What they want is they want to pay us poverty wages so they can keep on making billions more in profits, and they can keep enriching the shareholders and the CEOs and the corporate executives, while the workers pay the price for it and get left behind. That's got to stop in this country.
Ford has said that your demands would more than double the labor costs, which are already significantly higher than the labor costs at Tesla, at Toyota, and other foreign-owned automakers.
Okay, dude. Oh my God. Oh my. Do you have stocks? Like, what's happening? This is like having Jim Cramer interview fucking Shawn Fain, dude. What the fuck? Holy moly, she's disgusting, dude. What the fuck?
Who don't use union labor. So how do you make the case that these automakers need to keep investing in more expensive union shops rather than move to these right-to-work states?
First off, labor costs are about 5% of the cost of the vehicle.
Yeah, exactly. Shut the fuck up. Puebla. Why don't they move to Puebla? It is. It's fucking nothing, dude. It's fucking bullshit.
They could double our wages and not raise the price of the vehicles and still make billions in profits. It's a choice. And the fact that they want to compare it to how pitiful Tesla pays.
Is to feed him different talking points? I don't think she's crazy. No, she 100% is antagonistic, I think.
Their workers and other companies pay their workers. That's what this whole argument's about. Workers in this country.
There's a much better way to bring that out. Like, there's a much better way to ask that fucking question to him than directly repeat propaganda from the Ford CEO, dog. Are you kidding me? She's not feeding him like good questions to have a decent conversation. She 100% is trying to fucking own him by and failing to do so by bringing up like just company propaganda.
Got to decide if they want a better life for themselves instead of scraping to get by paycheck to paycheck while everybody else walks away with the loot. Yeah. And, you know, when we bargain good contracts, going back to the founding of this union, people join the UAW because we set the standard. People join unions because it's a better way of life. And that's what we got to do. We have to bargain a good contract, and then we're going to go organize these places and bring these workers in so they get their fair share of the economy that they get nothing of right now. Most of these workers in those companies are scraping to get by so that greedy CEOs and greedy people like Elon Musk can build more rocket ships and shoot themselves in outer space. And that's unacceptable.
President Biden says
yes, you got the smoke for Elon too. Fuck him up, King. God, I love him. He's
the most pro-union president in American history, but you haven't endorsed him. What is it going to take for you to do that?
After she bullied him, she's like, "Now, why don't you shut the fuck up and toe the line for your goddamn president?" It's like, nice, man, thanks. How about he show up at the picket line?
Our endorsements are going to be earned. We've been very clear about that, no matter what politician it is.